start, or just beginning to put the track down, and we've got to start thinking about wiring it up as we go, of course. What I like to do is to have connections, not just one connection to the track, but multiple connections around the same track. So we've got an inner and outer and a kind of a rambling one. So each one will have its own separate circuit, electrical circuit, and each one will also have a number of connections around its circuit. Now, if you can think of electricity a bit like water pressure, so you can you start off one end of a pipe full of water with a pump or a tap, something that gives the water a pressure, and you connect a hose pipe up to it and you run it down the bottom of the garden, and you find it's just a little trickle because of the resistance of the water within the pipe. It's sort of the same thing with electricity. The further it has to go, the more the resistance and the less the voltage. You want volts, you want power, all around your circuit. So if you revert to the analogy of the pipe, the water, if you were to have a pump at the beginning to produce the pressure, and then as you go down this huge great long pipe with water flowing in it, you put another pump, so it pushes the pressure back up to what it was before, and then another pump, so it increases the pressure again. At the end of the pipe you've got exactly the same pressure as you have at the beginning of the pipe. So this is what we're going to do with the wiring on the train circuit. We're going to have a circuit all around of 12 volts. Wiring is called a buzz system for some reason or other, probably because people get on and off buzzes, don't they? And that's what we're going to do, I don't know. Bus bar. Anyway, that's a thick wire that goes around the whole circuit, and off that you have what they call droppers. Okay, these droppers are connections from this bus system up to your railway track, and basically it's a way of rejuvenating the power in the circuit to make certain that you've got power through the whole of your train track. The way I like to do it is that my droppers, which are the wires that come down from the track to the main buzz, which is the big thick wire underneath, I like to solder onto my track connectors, the little connectors like that connect the, you see those? Connectors that connect the track. I like to solder the wires onto the bottom of those, and I've done a few. That's one I did earlier. World War III going on outside, I think. Anyway, that's one I've done earlier, and I'll just take you through that now, that system, okay? So, as far as the cables go, the wires, I found an old bit of 3-core somewhere. Wire, I stripped the outside off, and I'm using the inner wires. So I've got 3 colours. I've got a big length of brown, a big length of blue. This will do for the droppers, okay? The wire that goes around the whole thing will be a little bit thicker than this. you find that electricity dissipates in the form of heat. That's the resistance, and so you don't want the wires to get too hot. The smaller the wire, the hotter it gets. So if you put in a thick wire, less resistance, and you get less heat. So soldering, what do we do? Okay, so we've got the wire that we want to connect. We've got the connector that we want to connect it to. So we make sure both are clean, which I already have done. And I've got this little piece of kit here which will hold the wire, hold the connector in place whilst I solder it. I've already preheated my soldering iron. Okay, this soldering iron is a 30 watter. Okay, what? A 30 watt. It's got a copper tip, hot, that's why I didn't touch it. As you can see, hot. And it has to be what is called tinned. Okay, so we have some solder over here. This is without lead, leadless solder, so it's tin and silver. 96.5% tin and the rest in silver. Hasn't got any flux in the solder, so we have to make certain that the soldering iron is clean, which we'll do on a moist sponge. We've already cleaned it off with a file. What we have to do is put some flux on the tip of the soldering iron, put some flux on the wire, and just what they call tin the wire, which is just literally heating it up so that it's coated with the solder. Right, that's the first step. Second step is to make certain that your connector, rail connector, is clean and ready to accept the solder. So we've put a bit of flux on that. Now I did have a pair of pliers here earlier. You got a pair of pliers there? Small pliers, big pliers. No? Where are they? Right, okay. Now the reason why I'm going to use the pliers is because I want to bend this piece of pre-soldered wire through 90 degrees like that, so that the flat is soldered like that. The wire comes off at 90 degrees and comes vertically down through the baseboard. Right, so the next thing we need to do now, make sure that's fluxed and it's still got tin on it, so we just need to tin the underside of the, as the underside, don't forget, of the connector, and we need to rest the wire on top of the connector until the wire, solder that's on the wire, the solder that's on the connector are melted together and cool enough. You'll see when it gets cool enough, because it'll slightly change colour. In actual fact, I've got a little bit too much solder on that. I don't like that. It's too much solder on that, isn't there? So we just need to take a little bit off, which isn't, it's not great shakes. Right, okay, that'll do us. So we've got brown ones and we've got blue ones. So if we call that a live and we call that a neutral, if we take one track, okay, the outside track, that's obviously got an outside rail and an inner side rail. The outside rail we either make live or we make neutral. But each time we put the connectors on the track, we make sure that we put them on in exactly the same way. And otherwise, if we've chosen that the outside cable is going to be a live, we make sure that it's always the brown cable which is attached to the outside rail, okay? And the neutral on the inside rail. Right. That's about it for soldering those things. That's dead simple, isn't it, really? Make a hole through the baseboard. When those are connected up to the rail, okay. Well, we've got a bit of old scrap round there. When those are connected up like that, 1, 2, then we make a hole through the baseboard and take these down. That's why they're called droppers, because they drop down through the baseboard. Yeah, okay. And we'll solder or connect them onto the main bus as it drives by. Okay. That's it for today. Just a quickie. Thank you. And we'll be doing a little bit more putting the rails together, obviously, soldering and doing the rest of it as we go along. Alright. Yeah. Cheers for now. Bye.